Hello everyone, a very good morning, good afternoon and good evening to all of the viewers from around the world. This is your host Vaibhav. In today's session of JForex Indicators Explained, we will be considering the properties and the uses of the indicator Woodie pivot. This is one of the pivot point series indicator. In the last three sessions, we had seen the explanation for other pivot points, the classical pivot point, Fibonacci pivot, and the Camarilla pivot. Today, we will take turn for the Woodie pivots. This is slightly different compared to the other pivot points. It gives more weightage to the recent closing price data, and the reason, or you can say the logic behind that, is the high and low of the day are considered the emotional, or you can say sentimentality of the market, but the opening and closing price is given more importance. So in these Woody pivot points, we have more weightage given to the closing price while calculating the central point, and on the basis of that, the resistance and support levels are drawn so that more weight which is provided for the closing price gets reflected in all the key levels, the central point, the resistance levels, and the support levels. Now let us head to the JForex 4 platform, which has been developed by the Dukascopy Bank SA. This is the newly released JForex 4 platform, and it is quite aesthetic to look at. I will change this chart to the hourly candle period. Okay, this is the Euro USD chart drawn on the hourly time frame. I will plot the Woody pivot point. Here it is, Woody pivot is drawn for the daily time frame. So we have these support and resistance levels drawn using the prior day's closing price, high price, and the low price. As I said, the closing price is considered twice, so we get the central point using the high, low, plus the closing price multiplied by 2, and then we divide it by 4 to arrive at the central point. And after that, we consider the difference of the high and low to add and subtract that difference from the central point to arrive at this resistance and support level. So formula for all the three resistance and support levels is slightly different, and these are mostly symmetrical for calculating these support and resistance levels. So whatever is the central point, we get these resistance and support levels drawn from almost equal distance compared to this resistance. We will have the support level at a similar distance from this central point, but not always. Sometimes it can vary depending on the formula used or the difference between the high and low. So that is the logical formulation of the Woody pivot point. Now coming to its uses, as is the case with all the pivot points, the central point is the determining factor between the bullish and bearish tendencies. The price above it is considered to be bullish, and the price formation below it is considered to be bearish. And in today's session, where we have seen the price of the Euro USD hovering closer to this central point, it can be said to be indecisive. We don't really have any significant spurt or bearish decline happening in the Euro USD. It is consolidating closer to this level. So that is the interesting takeaway from this price formation here. But it is indeed finding some support closer to the central point. So unless and until there is significant break, I don't feel it is advisable to go short, and that is also the classical interpretation of the Woody pivot point series. We use this indicator to determine whether to go long or whether to go short, and as long as the majority of price moves are above the central point, it is not advisable to short it. So that is the use one of the use of this indicator. And after that, whenever there is a deviation from the central point, we will have do you rely on the resistance levels or support levels depending on which side the price formation moves? So here you can notice that in today's session we saw the Euro USD jumping closer to the resistance level, then giving up all those gains, and now again the price has moved back closer to the central point. And on the lower side we didn't really get any major move. Let us plot the historical levels, so we will have more reference points to see how the price has behaved closer to the support and resistance zone. So I will opt for the show historical levels. Okay, so this is the yesterday's price formation, and as you can notice, the price momentum was bearish for Euro USD, and it most of the time stayed below the central point. And only in the second half of the session, we saw the Euro USD moving back toward the central point, but it found the resistance and it was not really able to cross above it, and it closed the day in bearish territory only. On the lower side, if you consider the support, which was at around 1.1012, it did provide some support, and we saw the Euro USD reversing after this prior decline in the first half of the session. And now you can see that the central point plays a key role, and on most occasions when we have this bearish tendency and it has started the day on the lower side of the central point, it has continued to move in the bearish territory, and as it started the day on the higher side, it has mostly been holding the ground. But if we go back, it has played a key role. So a break above or below the central point is considered quite important. And then consolidation closer to the support and resistance levels come into play. So whichever support levels is is providing some support to the price moves, and if we see the price formation respecting those levels and consolidating closer to that, then we can even take the contra trend trade while going for the trading decisions, even if the momentum has been bearish. But if the price formation is finding support closer to the first, second, or third support, then we can indeed think about the entry for the buy trade while keeping the stop loss appropriately. If you are going for the trade closer to the first support, then it is better to keep the stop loss below or close to the second support. And if you are going for the trade closer to the second support, then third support becomes the stop loss level. And if you are seeing the price formation consolidating in between these second and third support, in that case the stop loss will have to be kept below this third support level. And inversely, for resistance zone we can adopt a similar strategy while looking for contra trend indicate entry closer to the three key resistance levels for shorting the underlying instrument. So that's the use of these indicator formation. Now let us see how we can customize this indicator to arrive at useful inference to make the informed trading decisions. So here I will now opt out of this show labels, and when we have the labels in place, it distinguishes which is the first support, second support, and third support. So I will opt in again, so it becomes easier to read the data. All right, now coming to these all the key output points, the central point, the resistance levels R1, R2, R3, and along with that we have these S1, S2, S3. And if you want to use all of these key points, then you can use all the three levels. But if you want to rely on only some of the points of this pivot point series, then you can choose that as well. Suppose if you want to omit the second support and second resistance, you can opt out of that. You can highlight the central point in a major way. You can increase its width so that it looks prominent. And if you think that the first resistance and first support is not going to play that much importance, then you can decrease its visibility as you feel that there is not going to be much important. So it is always up to you what kind of formation you want to rely on, and what is the setup, so you can plan the trades accordingly. Here you can increase the weight, and also you can play around with transparency. All right, so here we have these plotting of the indicators output points. The central point is looking a lot more prominent. Compared to that, the R1 and the S1 are not that prominently plotted. Again, we have this third resistance and third support point plotted with prominent higher weight. So you can customize this, and whatever the levels you feel are going to be important as per your interpretation of these Woodie pivot, you can highlight those data points, and you can minimize the other data points. Now suppose if we again edit it and go for show historical levels, you will see similar kind of rise formation plotting in the prior time series as well. The central point is always more prominent compared to the support and resistance levels, and the chart becomes much more aesthetic to look at, and also it is much easier to read these data points when we are using these different properties of the indicator to customize it as per the requirement. So that's what we can do with the output. Now let us consider the advanced editing options. You can opt for these, the recalculate on new candle only. So whenever there is new candle, only then those values will be calculated. But this is the data depending on the prior candles formation. So most of the time it is going to remain constant throughout the day. But other indicators which are a lot more dynamic in nature, there you have to be careful if you want the fixed data point, or if you want the indicator's value to keep varying during the current candle period. So accordingly you have to make a choice. The time period is going to be highlighted, but as I said, it is simply based on the prior candle. So if you are using the days time frame, then the last day's worth of data is considered, so you can highlight that time period which has been used to calculate. Coming to the calculate from custom data, you can use the instrument from the chart, or you can specify it. The time zone can also be anything from the chart, or you can take the time zone of your area. Local time zone can also be used. On a shorter period, you can opt for these four options for values to be displayed at the end, start, middle, or each channel period. The spread side can be ask or bid, and there will be slightly difference in the plotting of the output value considering the spread side. If you opt for the indicator to be shown on all periods, then it will be shown on all periods. But if you opt out of this, then you have to specify on which particular time frame the indicator plotting should be done, and only on those time frame the indicator will be plotted. Now on the half an hourly time frame, there won't be any would pivot output values visible on the chart. But as soon as I change it back to say 15 minutes or 1 hourly, we will have the output value in place again. So that's how this system works. You can also use different calculation period. Now we were using the 1 day as the calculation base. If you want to use it for lower time frame, you can do that. Now there is the 4 hourly output values for the Woodie pivot. All right. Or if you want to rely on a larger time frame while making the trade decisions, then you can simply go for weekly, and we will have weekly plotting. We are not getting any levels, so let us consider the hourly time frame, and here it will be plotted with this wide difference between the central point, the resistance point, as it is dependent on the prior week's price formation, and as we had large volatility in the last week's Euro USD, so we have this wide resistance and support levels drawn for the this week's Woodie pivot point series. So that's it from my side for today's session. If you have any query or any idea to share, you can write back to me in the feedback section, and I would be more than happy to take the discussion forward. For further coverage of the market developments, do check out the Dukascopy Analytics page. We are also available on the Facebook. You can reach out to us there too. For trying out this newly released platform, the JForex 4, the link has been included in the bio. All the three key links have been provided in the bio. So thank you all for joining in. Have a fabulous time ahead. Make a lot of money. See you next time with a new indicator, new explanation. Till then, goodbye.